Every few decades, someone comes along who changes the entire financial conversation. Someone who looks at the chaos that everyone else calls normal and says the quiet part out loud. Love him or hate him. Donald Trump has always been that person. He has been called loud, unpredictable, controversial, but here's the truth most people miss. Trump has an instinct for timing that the market cannot explain. When he speaks, investors listen not because they agree with him, but because they know he feels something in the economy before the numbers catch up. And right now, what Trump just said about the financial system has people wondering, does he know something the rest of the world doesn't? Welcome back to Crypto Equation, where we break down the power plays happening behind the scenes of global finance. What if the guy everyone calls crazy is actually seeing the future clearer than the economists who get paid to predict it? Trump recently made headlines again when he warned that the United States is losing control of its financial dominance. He said that the dollar is under attack, and that if something doesn't change soon, America's greatest strength could become its greatest weakness. And here is the wild part. He is not wrong. For the first time in modern history, countries are openly moving away from the US dollar as the primary reserve currency. The BRICS alliance, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa are pushing for an alternative trade system that bypasses the dollar completely. And while the mainstream media frames it as politics behind the curtain, it is economics. This is what Trump sees before most people do: the shift of power from paper money to digital systems. The irony is that Trump has always criticized crypto, publicly calling Bitcoin a scam in the past. But over time, his tone started to change. As central banks began developing digital currencies, Trump realized that blockchain technology was not just about coins, it was about control. He started talking about the need to protect the American dollar from losing influence, which indirectly means protecting the financial system from being replaced by decentralized alternatives. But here's the twist. The very technology he warned about may also be the thing that saves the financial system from collapse. XRP and similar assets are the perfect example of how digital liquidity could support a collapsing monetary system. When Trump says America is at risk of losing control of its money supply, what he really means is that global trade is moving away from slow systems like SWIFT and towards faster digital settlement rails. Ripple has been building those rails quietly with the same institutions Trump once negotiated with. The Federal Reserve banks in Europe and Asia and cross-border networks that now rely on digital tokens for instant liquidity. Whether Trump realizes it or not, what he is describing as a future threat might already be the present reality. Trump's prediction of a major financial reset is not fiction. He warned that the current debt spiral is unsustainable and that inflation is not going away just because the Fed says it will. That is exactly what we are seeing now. The national debt is at record highs, consumer confidence is dropping, and interest rates are squeezing the middle class. Trump says that if the US does not rethink its financial system soon, it will lose the one thing that kept it powerful for a century: control of money flow. And when that control shifts, it will not go to another country. It will go to whoever owns the next generation of global settlement technology. The idea sounds dramatic, but think about it. Every major financial empire collapsed not because of war or politics, but because of currency transition. The Roman Empire fell when their silver lost value. The British Empire lost dominance when the pound could no longer back trade. Now the dollar faces the same challenge, and the world is already testing what comes next. Trump's so-called crystal ball moment is simply him recognizing what history has always done repeat itself. He is not predicting the end of America. He is predicting the beginning of a new system, one that may not be controlled by governments, but by technology. Trump's instincts have always been economic. First, political, second. When he was in office, he focused on trade balance, manufacturing, and debt cycles. He often said that America's biggest threat was not China or Russia, but its own addiction to printing money. That is the exact foundation of every economic bubble in history. And right now, that bubble is stretching thin. The Federal Reserve continues to raise rates to fight inflation, but every rate hike adds pressure to global liquidity. Banks are closing, smaller institutions are merging, and global debt is being repriced. Trump warned that this kind of stress ends with a reset, and he might be right again. The most interesting part is how his warning lines up perfectly with what digital asset investors have been saying for years. The current financial system cannot survive without a bridge asset. The world needs something that can connect currencies in real time without relying on outdated systems. That is the exact problem XRP was built to solve. And whether Trump knows it or not, his description of the coming collapse mirrors the same logic that Ripple's technology is designed to fix. He is seeing the cracks in the foundation that blockchain builders have been working on for a decade to repair. Trump's critics will say he is fear-mongering, but look at his track record with timing. Before the 2008 crash, Trump warned that real estate prices were becoming unsustainable. In 2016, he predicted inflation before it became a mainstream concern. In 2020, when everyone thought the economy was unstoppable, he said that debt and spending would destroy the dollar's credibility. Every time people laughed first and listened later. The difference now is that this time the stakes are global. He is not talking about a market correction. He is talking about a system correction. The strange truth is that this warning connects with the core principle of crypto itself. Decentralization was born as a response to government mismanagement of money. When Trump says the system is broken, he is echoing the same message the crypto community has been screaming for years. The difference is that now the government and private sector are both realizing that fixing this system might require adopting the same blockchain infrastructure that was once dismissed as a threat. The solution is becoming the savior. Trump has built his career on seeing value before others do, whether in real estate branding or policy. He knows how to capitalize on disruption, and disruption is exactly what is happening to global finance right now. Central bank digital currencies are being developed faster than anyone expected. Ripple's partnerships with payment providers are expanding quietly across continents. Banks that once dismissed crypto are now testing tokenized settlements. This is not speculation anymore, it is confirmation. The very system Trump warned would fail is preparing its replacement behind the scenes. So what happens when that replacement goes live? Imagine a world where global transactions settle instantly, where liquidity is no longer tied to geography, and where currencies can move freely through digital bridges. That is what XRP represents, and it is exactly the kind of technology that will thrive in the system Trump says is inevitable. The irony is that the world may need what it once rejected. The shift from paper to digital money is not optional anymore, it is survival. Trump's crystal ball may not be magic, it is experience. He has seen cycles rise and fall. He has lived through crashes that destroyed trillions and comebacks that rebuilt them. When he says the system is in danger, it is not a guess. It is observation. He understands leveraged debt and liquidity at levels most politicians never will. That is why when he warns that the current setup cannot hold, you should pay attention. He is not predicting a timeline, he is describing a trajectory. And that trajectory ends with a global financial transformation powered by digital liquidity. The real question is what side of that transformation you will be on. Will you be one of the people who watches it happen, or one of the few who understood it early enough to position yourself ahead of it? Because if Trump is even half right, the next decade will not look anything like the last. The banking system, the dollar, and the way we move money are all being rewritten in real time. This is not conspiracy, it is evolution. And like every evolution before it, those who adapt thrive, while those who deny disappear. Every revolution starts with denial, then resistance, and then acceptance. We are moving into that final phase right now. The institutions are no longer fighting the change. They are embracing it quietly while pretending to resist. The media downplays it because it benefits from confusion. But the data is there. Ripple continues to form new corridors. Central banks are announcing interoperability pilots. Tokenization is being integrated into real estate energy and trade. The future Trump warns about is already here. Most people just have not realized it yet. Trump has always been obsessed with winning. And in this new financial game, the only way to win is to understand the rules before everyone else. The rules have changed. Liquidity is becoming digital. Trust is being replaced by code. Money is being redefined by mathematics, not politics. The people who understand that now will become the financial elite of the next era. Everyone else will keep waiting for old systems to recover while the new ones quietly take over. The shift is happening and it is not waiting for permission. This is the moment the few recognize before the many. The same way some people saw the internet before it became mainstream or saw Bitcoin before it became valuable, the next wave is not about speculation. It is about function. XRP and similar technologies are not hype, they are infrastructure. The rails of tomorrow are being built today, and the voices warning about collapse are simply echoing what insiders already know. Trump's warning may sound dramatic, but history will remember it as another sign that the old world was ending while the new one was beginning. And just like every time before, most people will say they were never told. But the truth is, they just were not listening. Trump's recent statements are not random outbursts, they are signals. Every time he talks about the dollar collapsing, about inflation being worse than reported, or about other countries gaining control, he is hinting at something most investors overlook. He understands that confidence, not currency, is the real foundation of any economy. Once confidence fades, it does not matter how strong your GDP looks on paper or how high the stock market trades. When people lose trust in the money they use, everything else unravels. That is the invisible line Trump sees, and that is why his warnings sound like prophecy. He knows what happens when faith in the system disappears. History always ends the same way the system gets replaced, and the replacement this time will not come from a new government or policy. It will come from technology. Trump knows influence better than anyone. He understands how narratives move markets and how fear and confidence control behavior. When he says that America is losing control, it is not just about politics. It is about the shifting architecture of money. The world is building new rails, and for the first time, those rails are not being designed in Washington or Wall Street. They are being built in code by decentralized networks and global collaborations. Ripple is one of those networks, and it is becoming too big to ignore. When Trump says that other nations are gaining ground, what he really sees is the emergence of a new monetary ecosystem that does not depend on any single government for validation. That is what makes it powerful, and that is what makes it inevitable. The irony is that Trump's vision of a strong America and the vision of the crypto world are not that different. Both believe in independence, self-reliance, and control over one's own financial destiny. Trump fights for control at the national level. Crypto fights for it at the individual level. The intersection of those two forces could define the next decade. Because eventually, governments and individuals will need the same thing, a trustless, transparent financial system that can move value instantly without middlemen. That is where XRP and similar technologies come in. They are not anti-government. They are evolution for everyone. Trump's instincts about timing could also explain why so many high net worth investors are suddenly moving into hard assets again. Gold, silver, real estate, and yes, crypto. They are diversifying not because they believe in collapse, but because they understand transformation. Trump has always said that success is about being ready when the world changes, not when it stays the same. And the world is changing faster than most realize. Inflation is eroding savings. Central banks are experimenting with control. And every digital system we depend on is one cyber attack away from exposure. The future demands resilience, not reaction. Trump may not say it directly, but what he is describing is the need for financial independence at scale. Across the world, powerful institutions are doing exactly that. They are reducing exposure to the dollar, increasing positions in commodities, and quietly testing digital asset frameworks. Even major payment providers like Visa and MasterCard are expanding crypto settlement programs. It is not a question of if the digital financial system will take over. It is a question of when. Trump sees the consequences of delay. The longer America waits to adapt, the more ground it loses to those who already have. That is why his tone sounds urgent. He understands leverage, and he knows when it is running out. The same rules that made him billions in real estate apply to global economics. Too much leverage and the foundation cracks. Trump's critics will dismiss this as paranoia, but even they cannot deny the trends. Every major bank is now exploring tokenized settlements. Governments are discussing interoperability. Ripple's technology is being integrated quietly into cross-border payment systems across Asia, the Middle East, and Latin America. These are not headlines. These are blueprints for the next financial network. And when that network becomes fully operational, the role of assets like XRP will shift from speculation to necessity. That is when the real revaluation begins. And that is what Trump's warnings are indirectly pointing to the end of monetary monopoly and the rise of monetary competition. Trump's so-called crystal ball is nothing more than experience sharpened by consequence. He has seen what happens when people ignore obvious signals. He has lived through bankruptcies, through crises, and through recoveries. That is why he recognizes familiar patterns. Excessive debt, artificial confidence, and overextended markets always end the same way. What replaces them is what matters. In 2008, it was quantitative easing. In 2025, it could be blockchain infrastructure running the rails of the global economy. That is why those paying attention today will look visionary tomorrow. The average person will hear Trump's warnings and think politics. The wise investor will hear opportunity, because buried inside his alarm is a roadmap for what comes next. A global liquidity network that does not rely on borders or central banks. A financial system where transparency is coded, not promised. A marketplace where value moves as fast as information. That is not science fiction. That is the foundation of the blockchain economy being built in real time. When Trump says something big is coming, he might not understand every technical detail, but his instincts are guiding him toward the same truth the crypto community already knows. The old financial system cannot keep up with the speed of global commerce anymore. Settlement delays cost billions every day. Inflation punishes savers while speculation rewards risk. Politicians argue while innovators build. Trump's frustration is the same frustration shared by millions of investors who feel that the system no longer serves them. And that is exactly why decentralized and digitized systems are rising. because people want efficiency, fairness, and control, not promises that vanish with each election cycle. Trump's message connects emotionally because he is not just talking about money. He is talking about freedom. The deeper question is what happens when those two forces merge the traditional financial power of governments and the decentralized power of blockchain. The answer is balance. We are entering an era where both must coexist. Governments will regulate, but they cannot stop innovation. The blockchain world will expand, but it cannot replace order. The balance will be found in hybrid systems like Ripple's, where institutions and technology collaborate instead of compete. That is the real transformation Trump's message hints at. The future of finance is not about winners and losers. It is about integration. Trump may never publicly endorse crypto, but his every warning pushes people closer to it. The more he talks about the dollar collapsing, the more people look for alternatives. The more he warns about inflation, the more people understand the value of limited supply assets. His message unintentionally accelerates the adoption he might not even fully support. That is the irony of truth. It spreads even when the messenger does not intend it. The conversation he started about sovereignty control and money is now being finished by the blockchain world. Trump's ability to influence markets, even from the sidelines, proves that leadership is not about position. It is about narrative. When he speaks, the world listens because deep down, people know that behind his exaggeration, there is often a grain of truth. He speaks the fears people already have, but are too afraid to admit. That is why his words resonate. He is not always right, but he is rarely irrelevant. His instincts for timing opportunity and disruption mirror the same principles that drive successful investors and innovators. Timing and conviction always beat consensus. The next few years will test every assumption about value. We are entering a period where technology will challenge what money even means. Assets will be tokenized, identity will be digital,